on the impeachment, looking back, because you're part of it, you get to experience it. Do you think they strengthened or weakened this nation?
I think it weakened in many respects, just the way that it was conducted. I mean, there's a new book coming out by a couple of journalists in the Washington Post. I haven't actually seen it yet, but I really did, kind of worry that myself that it became a spectacle. And although it actually, I think, in many respects was important in terms of an exercise of civic responsibility and, gave people a big, massive lesson in civics. Everyone's kind of running out and looking up the whole process of impeachment and what that meant and congressional prerogatives. I was as well. I was, like running off myself and, trying to learn an enormous amount about it because I was in the middle of all of this. That it didn't ultimately show responsibility and accountability. And that in itself was weakened because on both sides there was a lot of partisan politics. I think that there was a dereliction of duty in many respects. I mean, especially I have to say on the part of Republican members of Congress who were, they should have been embracing, Congress's prerogatives. You could have, basically done this in something of a different way. But the whole thing is because it was this larger atmosphere of polarized, well, not even polarized, but fractured politics. And I was deeply disappointed, I have to say, in many of the members of Congress on the Republican side. I mean, there's a lot of grandstanding that I really didn't like one bit on the Democratic side either. And not admitting to mistakes and, not kind of addressing head on, the fact that they'd, kind of been pushing for, Trump to be impeached and, talking about being an illegitimate president, kind of right from the very beginning. And that, as a result of that, a lot of people just saw this as kind of a continuation of, political games, coming out of the 2016 election. But on the Republican side, it was just a game. There was people I knew who were, basically, at one point, one of them winked at me. Mm-hmm. In the middle of this, kind of impeachment. It's just like, don't take this personally. This is... It's
a game.
This is a game. And I just thought, this isn't a game. And that's why I think that it, kind of weakened because, I mean, again, on the outside, it weakened us, the whole process weakened us in the eyes of the world because, again, the United States was the gold standard. And I do think, I mean, again, in the terms of the larger population, although a lot of people did actually see the system, standing up, trying to do something to hold people account, but there still was that element of circus and a big political game and people being careless with the country.
But I do think that the Democrats were the instigators of the circus. So as it's perhaps subtle, but there's a different way you talk about issues or concerns about accountability when you care about your country, when you love your country, when you love the ideals, and when you versus when you just want to win
and stick it to the other side. No, I agree. I agree. I mean, there were people who I actually thought managed that, that made it about the country rather than about themselves.
But I guess there were others who did to do that.
Yeah, there were others who did a lot of grandstanding. Yeah, and that's another problem of our political incentive structures. That the kind of sense of accountability and responsibility tends to be personal. Whether people decide to do it or not, it's not institutional. If that makes sense. We've had a kind of a breakdown of that sense. Now, I took an oath of office, and I'm assuming that most of them did too. I had to be sworn in, when I took those positions. I took that seriously, but I already took an oath of citizenship. There's, presumably you did too, you kind of studied to become an American citizen. It's not something you take on lightly. And, so I felt this deep sense of responsibility all the time, which is why I went into the administration in the first place. I mean, I got a lot of flack for it. Because, I thought, well, look, I've been asked and there's a real issue here after the Russian interference and, the whole influence operation in the 2016 elections. And I knew what was going on and I should do something. If not me, then, okay, someone else will go and do it. But can I live with myself just sitting on the sidelines and criticizing what people are doing, and kind of, worrying about this? Or am I actually going to muck in there and, just go and do something? It's like seeing your house on fire and you see that, okay, this is pretty awful and dangerous, but I could go in there and do something.